want to say all praises to the Most High Yahweh, by Hashem, Yahweh Shai. Um, Double honors to the elders and apostles of GMS. Shalom to the hopeful elect and all those, who are doing the work out there. Now, obviously, right now, the primary objective is really talking about, prophecy and watching this kingdom crumble. But, as you try to keep the faith, as this kingdom is crumbling, it's like the more you try to get right, the more you're gonna have demons attack you. And one of the ways that demons tend to attack men is through the woman. If you look at the story of Adam and Eve and so on and so forth. See, a lot of women think we're on them because we hate them, and ain't no one. I don't know about other dudes in the camps and other people in the truth, but I love black women personally. I couldn't really deal with another group of women, regardless of how unstable you are. But to be honest, so-called black men are also, highly unstable due to, this unstable environment that we're in, because instability breeds instability. You know what I mean? If you're not raised in a stable home, a lot of the time you turn into an unstable adult, so, one thing begets another. But, just being in the faith, I can see how people fall out due to women, because I hear all the time a lot of dudes will fall out because of women, and even if I'm just gonna grab a few scriptures, I'm just saying to be careful, because even David went off, you know what I mean? And this is 2 Samuel 11:13, and I know it's probably been touched on before. This is our second verse. And it came to pass in an eventide, so at evening, that David arose off his bed and walked upon the roof of the king's house. And from the roof he saw a woman washing herself, and the woman was very beautiful to look upon. So, had the titties and the arse all out, and he was like, And David sent and inquired after the woman, and one said, Is not this Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam, the wife of Uriah the Hittite? And David sent messengers and took her, and she came in unto him, and he lay with her, for she was purified from an uncleanness. Basically, she washed up, and then she left, and she returned unto her house. And the woman conceived and sent and told David, and I said, I am with child. And David sent to Joab, saying, Send me Uriah the Hittite. And Joab sent Uriah to David. We all know that what David did next was off, because he sent Uriah, to the heat of the battle, where the battle's fiercest, and he ended up dying. Now, David committed a very evil thing, and the Lord sent. This is a Second Samuel chapter 12, and the Lord sent Nathan unto David, and he came unto him and said unto him, there were two men in one city, the one rich and the other poor. So in this circumstance, David is a rich man, and Uriah is the poor man. The rich man had exceeding many flocks and herds, so David had plenty bitches and plenty women, plenty land, plenty money. But the poor man had nothing, so Uriah just had his wife, save one little ewe lamb, which he had brought up and nourished up, and he grew up together with him and with his children, and he did eat of his own meat, and drank of his own cup, and lay in his bosom, and was unto him as a daughter. And there came a traveller unto the rich man, and he spared to take of his own flock and of his own herd to dress for the wayfaring man that was come unto him. But he took the poor man's lamb and dressed it for the man that was come to him. And David's anger was greatly kindled against the man, and he said to Nathan, As the Lord liveth, the man that hath done this thing shall surely die, and he shall restore the lamb fourfold, because he did this thing, and because he had no pity. And Nathan said to David, Thou art the man. Thus saith the Lord God of Israel, I anointed thee king over Israel, and I delivered thee out of the hand of Saul. So it pretty much goes into, well, I'm going to finish. And I gave thee thy master's house and thy master's wives into thy bosom, and I gave thee the house of Israel and of Judah. And if thou had been too little, I would have moreover have given unto thee such and such things. Wherefore hast thou despised the commandment of the Lord to do evil in his sight? Thou hast killed Uriah the Hittite with the sword, and hast taken his wife to be thy wife, and hast slain him with the sword of the children of Ammon. Now therefore the sword shall never depart from thine house, because thou hast despised me, and hast taken the wife of Uriah the Hittite to be thy wife. And if you look into the genealogy and history of David. You know, he had a whole bunch of issues. You know, his son raping his daughter. You know, and all of this stuff, and this pretty much stems from, you know, him going wrong in this circumstance here. So he kind of cursed himself in a sense by committing adultery. You know, and we can see that even somebody like David fell off. You know, even when you look into the books of Solomon, you read about Solomon. You know, he had 700 wives. You know, and he fell off because he tried to please his so-called wives. You know, and I was just reading how they're saying prostitution is a good thing, and I don't necessarily agree because, you know, it's not necessarily good to be a harlot. So if you're partaking in harlotry, i.e., if you're visiting a prostitute and so on and so forth, that can't be a good thing. You know what I mean? And this is Tobit 4:13. Now therefore, my son, love thy brethren and despise not in thy heart thy brethren, the sons and daughters of thy people, and not taking a wife for them. For in pride is destruction and much trouble, and in lewdness is decay and great want. For lewdness is the mother of famine. If we look into lewdness here, the definition of lewdness is the quality of being very sexual or lustful in an offensive way. An example of lewdness is asking people for sexual favors on the street. You know, and an example of lewdness is dealing with harlots, i.e., aka prostitutes. If you go into whoredom, you know, prostitution or other promiscuous sexual activity, you know, and if you look up harlot, you know, everyone should know what harlot means at this point. You know, as the elder city preacher to a choir, it's a prostitute. You know, so you're not really supposed to make harlots of the daughters of Israel. So if it was so correct to deal with prostitutes, why is it a commandment, you know, not to deal with that? And beware all whoredom, as we went into whoredom, my son. And chiefly, this is Tobit 4:12. Beware of all whoredom, my son, and chiefly take a wife of the seed of thy fathers, and take not a strange woman to wife. So saying dealing with Edomite women, and we all know sex is marriage. I don't necessarily agree with that. You know, it is what it is if you pop them, but you know, Israel went off for taking strange wives. You know, and you had I can't remember exactly what book it was, but they had to separate from their wives because they were being mingled with the heathens. And take not a stranger to wife, which is not of thy father's tribe, for we are the children of the prophets Noah, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Remember, my son, that our fathers from the beginning, even that they all married wives of their own kindred, and were blessed in their children, and their seed shall inherit the land. And if you look into the situation of Isaac with Ishmael and Jacob, you know, he had to send who was it, Hagar away, you know, with Ishmael, you know, because that was a problem there. So it is always a common and recurring theme to be very mindful of how you deal with women. You know, you're supposed to deal with them in order, because if you don't, you know, it's you're pretty much, you know, committing sin, and you're putting yourself in a position that's not necessarily beneficial. You know, as there's a saying, and I'm gonna butcher it. You know, all things are lawful, but not all things are expedient. You know what I mean? So you have to be very careful when dealing with that. And this is Judges 16:5. And the Philistines came up unto her and said unto her, this is Delilah, in regards to Samson, entice him, and see wherein his great strength lieth, and by what means we may prevail against him, that we may bind him to afflict him, and we will give thee, every one of us, 1,100 pieces of silver. So she'll get 1,100 pieces of silver to really entice, you know, Samson. And that's an act of prostitution. If somebody gives you money to go and entice a man, you know, that's an act of prostitution. You know, Samson won't run it off his mouth telling her the secret of his power if he was just sitting in the crib chilling with her. And I read one account where somebody was like, you know, they didn't have sex, Samson was just chilling her. Ain't no dude, especially ain't no Jake, chilling in a room with no chick, and he ain't slapping them cheeks, man. Come on, get the hell out of here. So this was really an act of prostitution on her part. You know, some people have suppose that she was a temple prostitute. I don't know about that. You know, the scripture don't necessarily get into descriptive detail or on what occupation was, but the fact that they paid her to go and entice him, and she more than likely had sex with him, you know, that was the act of prostitution of itself. Now, she may have not been a prostitution, you know, she had may not have been a prostitute, sorry, but the act of taking money to sleep with him is an act of prostitution, you know. And he fell off because of that. This is why in Ecclesiasticus 9:6 it says, "Give not thy soul unto harlots, that thou lose not thine inheritance." You know, so you might go and visit a so-called prostitute, and you know the pussy be good. You chop that bitch up, you know, and you keep going back. These times, you know, your mother died and gave you 10, 20 bags, or 20 grand, should I say, or 20K. You know, and you keep going there, and then soon whatever savings you have are gonna be depleted because you're giving your soul onto her. You know, you're taken by a woman. And I was watching this video by another camp that's closely related to GMS, and it was like, you know, it's kind of simp behavior to deal with that, because you just giving bitches money for pussy, when really and truly you should be able to go out there and get pussy. Now I don't know niggas' circumstances, you know, because I do a lot of research, you know, with things not necessarily pertaining to the truth, but psychology and stuff like that. And a lot of the times, you know, you feel lonely, you might just want some company and stuff like that. You're gonna have to gird up your loins, man, because a lot of people have fallen out, you know, over this, you know. And you got some, well, yeah, some of them are beautiful, some of them ain't. But you know, like, I'm not trying to cuss out the sisters. You know, I love black women, man. They're the premier women for me. I don't really get off on Edom's chicks. I don't really get off on Elam's chicks or Moab's or Ammon's. You know, especially when you get into biblical history and you find out, you know, who their forefathers are, and they have that same spirit on them. You know, I ain't really trying to be around them, and I vibe with black women so much more easier than I do with other nations of women. You know what I mean? I'm not looking to expend too much energy when I'm dealing with women, but we all know, you know, it's easy to deal with black women, but at the same time, you know, it's easy on the front end, but on the back end, you pay a lot more. It might be harder up on the front end with these other nations of women, but on the back end, I wouldn't necessarily say you pay less, but you know, they're more feminine than what I've seen a lot of so-called Negro women behave. You know, so you might think it's in your interest to deal with other nations of women, but that's hella going off, and I can't even you know, I can't even go into those scriptures right now, you know, because I don't know if it was Exodus or Deuteronomy, and you know, don't quote me here, but you know, there was a time where, you know, all the heads of the families were called, you know, to camp to separate from their wives of the other nations, you know. And again, as we're getting to the end of this thing, you know, these spirits are going to be running overtime. And you know, I'm a man like everybody else, you know. I have my needs, you know. As they say, we wrestle not with the flesh, but you know, with spiritual things, paraphrasing. But the flesh is always warring with, you know, the spirit, and sometimes the flesh wins, sometimes the spirit wins. But you know, and I was watching a video by Tahar, and he said, you know, you have to fast, because some of these spirits on you are not going to come out with anything other than fasting and praying, you know. And that's something that I personally have not been on as much. You know, you get a new job, you start being busy, you can't really, you know, you can't really fast and pray like you used to, you know, because you got to go to work and you don't really want to go there on an empty stomach and feel weak and not be able to perform your job properly. So you have all this other stuff. With one thing comes another thing, and we have to be very mindful of that, because you know, it's easy to be out here, especially at this moment in time, man, because you know, and the hour of temptation ain't even here really like that. So you know, you have to be strong through the mediocre stage to be able to endure through the harsher stage of it. And one of the reasons why dudes can fall out is because of this thing right here, that good, you know, it's good. You know what I mean? But it'll have you out of here. It'll have you completely. And this woman right here, Camilla Harris, she's a damn demon and a tear. Yeah, that's pretty much it for the brothers. To the sisters out there, I don't mean any offense, but you're meant to be the glory of the man, and you have to be mindful of that, because just it's just. All right, I'm gonna leave it off that. All praises to the Most High, Yahweh Ba'Shem, Yahweh Shai. Double honors to the elders and apostles of GMS, and shalom to the hopeful elect.